What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and I'm joined by Tyler, and we are here for part one of our three-part crossover event of Pirates of the Caribbean and our Star Wars Community Series. So we've had our Pirates of the Caribbean Community Series for a pretty long time now. Started it, biggest one on YouTube. We've also started a Star Wars Community Series that we had just recently ended, and we figured, for the ending of 2017 and kind of to commemorate a wild year for both these franchises, both new films came out this year, both kind of very different in our hearts and what we thought about them. We thought, let's do a crossover event. So in this topic, we're going to be kind of comparing the movies, strictly the movies, comparing them, saying which franchise is actually better. We're going to be having part two next week on Friday, talking about the concepts. Which movie franchise is actually better, just in straight up concept? Why do people go to see these films? And then our third part, in 2 weeks on Friday, we'll be talking about the new characters introduced in both Star Wars Episode 7 in Rey and Finn, and the new characters introduced in Pirates Dead Men Tell No Tales in Karina and Henry. So here we go. Right off the bat, we can throw away several Star Wars movies, right?
Yes. We can... And okay, so we're obviously big fans of Pirates of the Caribbean, obviously. But we're also pretty big fans of Star Wars as well. Arguably, we were Star Wars fans before we were Pirates of the Caribbean fans. But we thought of this video, and what we've kind of discovered is a little bit interesting, but almost sad at the same time. And you'll find out why it's sad. But like Alex said, we could pretty much, as Star Wars fans, eliminate. Now, when we first saw 1, 2, and 3, Phantom Menace, Clone Wars, and Revenge of the Sith, we could pretty much eliminate them right off the bat. When we saw them, when they first came out, and when we were younger, for those of us that were young at the time that they came out, those were really good movies. Arguably, at the time that they came out, they were decent movies. Maybe not so much the Phantom Menace, but it was cool to see Star Wars for the people who saw it in theaters when they originally came out for A New Hope. So, I'm sure it was cool to see Star Wars again, but it was probably I don't know if this is exactly what I was picturing. But you could say the same thing about the new generation of Star Wars, too. But anyway, so you could pretty much eliminate 3 movies right off the bat. Now, just to let everybody know, we are including Rogue One in this whole comparison. But so, as you know, we love Pirates 1, 2, 3, and of course not 4, but 5, which is my number 4. But everybody else's on the planet's 5. Those are all very good. Now, that's not the order that we like them in. But for Star Wars, so again, 1 through 3, they're out. 4, I know some people like it. Alex likes it. I'm not really big into A New Hope. Empire Strikes Back is pretty good / really good. And then Return of the Jedi, again, is pretty good / really good, depending on who you are. For me, it's pretty good. They're both pretty good. They're not that great. I'm not into older movies. It's just me, though. But I can see, potential-wise, they're pretty great. The Rogue One, Alex and I both really like that. I would say that's probably one of the best ones. Empire Strikes Back, there is pretty cool stuff in that one. But Rogue One is close to being the best. And then, of course, we have the new generation ones. So The Force Awakens and the atrocity, The Last Jedi. And if you didn't hear what we had to say about The Last Jedi, feel free to go and do that. Have yourself a laugh, but then also bring Kleenex for the tears. So The Last Jedi is out. And as I said, Empire Strikes Back, for at least me, and then I'll let Alex say, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, that's 2 right there. Rogue One. And I will give The Force Awakens probably the 4th spot on that list. But so 4 movies, okay? Now, for Pirates of the Caribbean, as I said, I like 1, but it's not the best. I would put number 1 under 5. But for me, it goes, again, and then if you remember, depending on the Tuesday, what Tuesday it is, number 3 is at the top or number 2 is at the top. So probably right now, for this feeling I'm having this week, it goes 2, 3, 5, 1. Okay? But that's 4 movies. compared to the 8 movies, or actually 9 movies that Star Wars have. Now, Alex, I'll let you give your group of Star Wars movies that you like, your group of Pirates movies that you like, and then we're going to dissect and we're going to break down, what franchise actually has the better movies.
So yeah, I agree with Tyler. I think when you look at Star Wars, you can throw out the prequels. They're basically garbage in every way, and you can throw out Episode 8. Episode 8, yes, visually looks stunning, and I know they did bold things in their own way, even though we don't necessarily think they're bold. I know a lot of people did like it. It's a very dividing movie, but personally, Tyler and I just didn't like it, so I'm throwing that out as well. New Hope, I would do the same thing as Tyler. It's good, but it's not nearly as good as 5, 6, Rogue One, 7. And 7, like Tyler and I were talking about before the video started, 7 I think is so good because of the potential it had, and I think 8 kind of sliced that potential in half a little bit. So 7 is kind of on shaky waters too in a lot of ways, but I'll put those 4. And then same thing with Pirates. Pirates 1 I think is a really good movie. I think is easily the worst of the 4 if you don't include On Stranger Tides. And then if you've watched the channel long enough, you'll know At World's End is my favorite movie of all time. So it's hard to beat that just in general. But At World's End, Dead Man's Chest. I think I would probably put Dead Man Tell No Tales ahead of Dead Man's Chest. And then Curse of the Black Pearl. So I have the exact same 4 that Tyler has. So before Tyler and I get into actually analyzing this and starting to ask some questions about, why people like each one and which one's better, we should kind of clarify that obviously these are 2 different franchises. They're hard to compare. They do have some similarities. One of them obviously being, at least right now, both owned by Disney. Passionate fan bases. Yes, Star Wars tends to be bigger and more passionate, but there are some similarities between these 2 films. But we do know, conceptually they are different films. They're obviously, one's in space, one's just a pirate movie. So we know it's stretching it a little bit to compare them, but that doesn't mean that we can't do it.
And then just to go off a little bit more of that, the real reason, and you'll kind of learn very quickly why we're kind of doing this comparison. Just like Alex said, there's obviously a Pirates fan base, and most of you know, and because you're part of it and you're with it, you're part of it here on YouTube with us. And you've been part of the community series and all that, as well as, the Star Wars people. And if you guys are watching, you've been part of our Star Wars community series. So obviously there's 2, sometimes separate, sometimes together, because we're part of both, Alex and I, and others. John Swindle, he is too. So, we all kind of like both. But my thing is, what movies, like which franchise actually has the better movies, and that's what we're going to look at. But not only that, which one makes more money, and we already kind of know, but we're going to show you which one makes more money, and then we're going to briefly discuss why the one that doesn't make as much money, why is that? And based on, things that we've read in comments, things that we've seen online before, things that you guys have seen before, and kind of like trying to figure out what it is that, why the one that does lesser than the other, why that is. So that's the whole basis for this video, just so you guys know before you go attacking us in the comments. But so as we said, Alex and I, we like all of the Pirates movies except for Pirates 4 on Stranger Tides. We don't like that movie. But 1, 2, 3, and 5 we do like. And then we both agree, Alex and I, 5, 6, Rogue One, and 7 are the ones that we generally like most for Star Wars. That's not really in order, but that's just our general choices for Star Wars. So now we're going to look at one of the more widely loved Pirates movies, At World's End, number 3. That made $963 million. That's just in theaters. Okay, that's really good. $963 million. 2007. We look at Empire Strikes Back, Episode 5, which is, again, generally the most loved Star Wars movie. That made $1.5 billion, I believe also just in theaters. 1980 for that one. That's adjusted for inflation. So $963 million compared to $1.5 billion. That is quite a big difference. But we're going to keep going, so we're skipping 4, screw 4. So Pirates Episode 2, as I will call it for the crossover event, made $1.06 billion. I clapped in my mind for that one. 1.06. Rogue One, that would probably be my second favorite, same as Alex. That made 1.05 billion. Pirates 2, check, you beat Rogue One by 0.01 billion. But so, close. That was very close. And then we'll talk about also, after I'm done giving the numbers, comparing the movies, what ones are actually better. Pirates Episode 5, Dead Men Tell No Tales, made 795 million. That's a big drop from the 963. Comparing it to Episode 6 of Star Wars, that made 1.13 billion. That's a big difference. And then finally, we look at Pirates 1, made 654 million, where Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, made 2.06 billion. Huge. That's a massive difference. Now, we can start comparing the films, Alex. First of all, I'll ask you, how do you feel about the number? I mean, clearly Star Wars, other than Rogue One and Pirates 2, the numbers for Star Wars absolutely demolish. They destroy Pirates of the Caribbean. And you love Pirates of the Caribbean. I do too, obviously. But how does that make you feel to know Star Wars clobbers Pirates of the Caribbean? 2.06 billion after how many years of being off or out of people's minds? A couple of years.
Yeah, it's crazy, and we're going to talk a little bit about like concept versus the actual movie quality, but obviously we see that Star Wars, and these aren't, by the way, these are including like our top 4 for each, and it's not talking about On Stranger Tides, and it's not talking about the other Star Wars movies, but when you look at like the trends, Star Wars definitely is the over $1 billion. It's over $1 billion. It's around $1.5 billion is kind of like the average, and then you have a couple that are in the $2 billions. A New Hope is almost $3 billion adjusted for inflation, so they just have a higher ceiling. Seems like no matter what. For some reason, even Attack of the Clones managed to make quite a bit of money after the failure of Phantom Menace. And you see Pirates, who also has a very high ceiling. People don't think it's that high, but I think you're insane to think that almost 800 million is a low number. Pirates also has a ceiling, but that seems to be 1 billion. Pirates is definitely like, a step below Star Wars. And it's frustrating because I think the quality, as we'll talk about, is just not the same between the two franchises.
And then this is the last thing I'll say before we compare. But I'm going to come back to these. That's why I'm saying this. So don't forget, guys. So 6 years from Pirates 4 to Pirates 5. And upon Pirates' return, and it did very well, like movie-wise, we all really like, not all of us, but most of us really like Pirates 5. Me and Alex definitely did. Alex and I. But it came back to us 795 million. Okay? 10 years for Star Wars, and it came back to us 2.06 billion. So both were gone for a while, but man, Star Wars took things, but that's like the world stood still. That's insane, the amount of that number is huge. But so now we're going to compare films. So we're actually going to look at Pirates 5 and Star Wars 7 first, and then we're going to look at the older movies. And the only reason we're going to do that is because these introduce the new generation characters and mix them in with the old generation characters. So we'll start off, Alex, I'll ask you, how do you feel about The Force Awakens? How do you feel about Dead Man Tell No Tales? Which one do you think is the better movie? We're not going to go too much into this segment, really, for 7 and 5, because, as you guys heard earlier, we're going to be comparing Rey and Finn from the new Star Wars movies and Henry and Karina from the Pirates of the Caribbean movie. But, Alex, overall, what are your thoughts on 7 and 5?
I think Episode 7 just had this huge momentum going into it, right? Where we're like, oh man, Star Wars is back. It looks good again. It reminds us of 4, 5, 6. J.J. Abrams is kind of doing things on purpose to remind us of the originals. And, again, like not going too much into those characters, it's tough because Episode 7 does have a lot of positive features to it. It's got the return of Han Solo, and he's a really good character. It's got a really good performance at Daisy Ridley, but kind of not the best performance by Adam Driver. I think he redeems himself in 8. I think he's a really great character, but he's not the greatest in 7. And what I think so many of us liked so much about 7 is the mystery. And, you had talked about, too, like, we had never walked out of a Star Wars movie questioning things the same way as Episode 7. The problem is, Episode 8 kind of just walked over us as if they didn't care. And Episode 9, we haven't seen yet, so we don't know, like, if things are going to get wrapped up. So a lot of the mystery, a lot of the great elements of 7 that make, I think, the future movies going to be better. Now kind of 7 just seems like flat, like, oh, they were planning things and it didn't happen. Pirates 5, again, return to the franchise. You and me were super hyped for it. This is their chance at redemption, and they nailed it. I mean, a little bit of a weak Jack Sparrow. They kind of hurt the lore of Pirates, which we see in the newest Star Wars, which is funny that they've done that twice now. But overall, Pirates 5 is an epic ride. I really love Pirates 5. And I guess if you have to just go based on I made a top 10 list of movies, Pirates 5 is on there at number 5. Star Wars The Last Jedi is not. And I think that it's tough, but I'm going to say Pirates 5 is better than The Force Awakens.
Yeah, I would agree, to be honest. I like The Force Awakens, and you've probably heard me say I really like The Force Awakens before. I do. That is true. The problem is, as we're talking about Star Wars, comparing Pirates, the problem is with Star Wars, 9 movies, and I absolutely hate 3, 1, 2, and 3, and I really don't like 4, Episode 4. That's 4 movies. That leaves you, if you could do math, that leaves you with 5 movies. Pirates has 5 movies. So, naturally, I could only like the rest, really. The Force Awakens, it's totally A New Hope, redone. Did they do it better? I used to think they did. Now the more I think about it, I don't think that they did do it better, actually. They did a great job at trying to do it better. Not quite doing it better, but introducing new things, like Alex said, the mystery. That was new to Star Wars completely. That was great. We all liked that. And Alex said, they spit on our faces with 8, but I'm not going to talk about 8. I can't. My doc, he'll be like, you got to take more medicine. In all seriousness, Pirates 5 is better. And here's the reasons. And I'm not going to go into all of them because we are going to talk about it later again. But in another video, I mean. The new characters that they introduced in 5 compared to the new characters that they introduced in 7, there's more possibility with the characters that they introduced in Pirates 5 with Henry and Karina to be able to take that Pirates of the Caribbean franchise and do so much more with it for many more years than they did with Rey and Finn. Don't even count Poe because he's a nobody. He's a nothing. Just like Rey, apparently. But Rey and Finn, and again, we already know. What do we already know? That, the next Star Wars trilogy is not with Rey and Finn. Do we know anything about the future of Pirates? No, we don't. Is it possible that it's going to be with Henry and Karina? I think so. I think it's very possible. I really do. And again, I think because of what they've established, because of what they stated in Pirates 5, it makes sense. It allows, they set it up to allow these characters to be able to take over, gives good reason why they can and why they would succeed and all that stuff. Where in Star Wars, we have no reason to believe why Rey, why Finn would be able to even be in future movies. So, and really there's I can't really talk about much more because we really know nothing about these characters. We don't know anything about their backstory, anything like that. And I'll save the rest for the next video. But the characters that were introduced, far better, I believe. And not only better, but stronger characters in Pirates. Now, obviously, they don't have the Force, but we can't compare that. But stronger characters, better characters, more established, like what they can do in Pirates than in The Force Awakens. The events that take place in 5, I think, are more, they're stronger than in The Force Awakens. The whole journey that takes place in Pirates 5 for Jack, for Henry, for Karina, for Barbossa, far stronger than what takes place for Finn, Rey, I'll say even Han Solo, and Kylo Ren. Much better for Pirates. The death that takes place in The Force Awakens compared to Pirates 5. Barbossa's death compared to Han Solo's death. Barbossa's far, far better than Han Solo's death. Was Han Solo's death surprising? Yes. Was Han Solo's death necessary? I don't know. We still have to find out, honestly. Was Barbossa's necessary? Absolutely. Was Barbossa's death necessary for his character? Absolutely. Did it fulfill his character? Absolutely. Can you say the same thing about Han Solo? I don't know. I'm after seeing 8, I thought at first, yes, but I still was like, I don't know if they really needed to. After seeing 8, I really question it. Do I question Barbossa's? Absolutely not. Do I think that in Pirates 6, that we will get, do I think that they will do anything, say anything that can ruin Barbossa's? I don't. I really don't. I think they did a solid job. If it's a different director, I don't think they'll mess that up. Because what they've done, and you've heard me 1,000 times, completed his character arc, tied everything together in such a way that, I still remember Barbossa's death, and I still feel it. The only thing I feel from Han Solo's is like, wow, they actually did it. That was surprising. That was it. That's it. But I don't feel anything from it. And I could even go on and on for the comparison, but I'm not going to, because I think you get the point. Pirates 5 is better, in my opinion, and obviously Alex's too. Pirates 5 is better than Star Wars 7 to me. And you could say, yeah, but Tyler, Pirates 5 mainly was a continuation. It wasn't really so much about new characters as Star Wars 7 was. I honestly disagree. I really do. Because I've always said Jack Sparrow is a road. Jack Sparrow is a road. He is what gets characters to the destination. Okay? So Jack Sparrow really, although, and that was the worst Jack Sparrow I think we've ever had, to be honest. So, super drunk, all that stuff. So he didn't help the movie. He actually hurt the movie, in my opinion. But it still manages to be one of the best Pirates of the Caribbean movies and better than The Force Awakens, because he allows, and the movie, where the movie goes, allows for all these other characters to get to where they need to be, and it works out so well. Where, the other characters in 7, Leia, Luke's obviously nowhere to be found until the end, and Han, they don't really, they don't do enough. They're not really getting anybody other than Kylo Ren, I guess, to where they have to be, like Jack Sparrow. So really, it is about, and Barbossa doesn't do much in 5 either. So really, 5 is about the new characters. So it is, those movies are very comparable, in my opinion. But that's all I really have to say about those two movies, because, really, breaking it down like that, it's very clear in my mind that Pirates 5 is much, much better than The Force Awakens, which I still believe is a very good movie, a very good Star Wars movie, but compared to Pirates, I think Pirates 5 does a much better job. So now we're going to compare Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, which is Alex's favorite, and we're going to compare that to Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back.
Now, you may think this could be a tough one. I think, a lot of people would definitely disagree. I'm not in the minority, but I do think there is not the biggest crowd that says At World's End's the best Pirates film. But I think, personally, it's easily the best Pirates film. It's got the most story to it. It's got the most characters. It's got the most lore. It's got the best action scenes, the best comedy, emotional. That film is so long and it just has every single thing that I want in a movie, along with just great characters and great acting, all thrown in. I mean, it literally is my favorite movie of all time, and I say that very seriously. It truly is, and I've seen a lot of great movies, but it's my favorite. And Empire Strikes Back is a phenomenal film. It really is. I watched it going into Episode 8. I watched it like a day before Episode 8. And Episode 5 actually surprises me every time I go back. I haven't watched it in 2 years, and it's such a good film. That is a really good film as well. I mean, you get the bad guys winning, which you do not see very often in films, especially back then. You get the twist of Darth Vader being Luke's father. You get a better lightsaber scene with Vader and Luke. You get more action set pieces. You also get better. The movie's just very different. It's very dark all the way through. Luke goes to train with Yoda, and Yoda kind of pretends that he's not who he really is, and so there's a lot going on in Episode 5, and it's a fantastic movie. It's the best Star Wars movie, I think, by really not that much, because I do like Rogue One, but compared to the rest of them, it's miles ahead of the rest. But in my opinion, it's got no comparison. I mean, the Jack Sparrow, the Johnny Depp performance as Jack Sparrow in Pirates 3, there's really no character in Star Wars that is as good as the Jack Sparrow we've gotten of the first 4 films. I think Jack Sparrow is one of the best characters ever created on film. And so I think that alone kind of gives it the edge. Davy Jones, I think, is a better villain than Darth Vader. I think Vader tends to be a better villain in 5 and 6 than he is in 4. In 4, he's kind of just this, guy in a suit that kind of looks scary. But he starts to do stuff in 5 and 6. But overall, I think there's no comparison. I think Pirates 3 is miles better than Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back.
So yeah, I actually agree again. And we're not paid by Disney at all. They're both Disney owned, so we're clearly, Johnny Depp's not like, I need money for my island, so you guys need to do, no, he tried before. I said, no, we can't do that, Johnny. We got to be honest here. I agree. Pirates 3, I think, is actually better than Star Wars Episode 5, though this is, in my opinion, much closer than Pirates 5 compared to Star Wars 7. But really, it's funny because what does Star Wars 5 have? Has twist, right? Has war, really, like the bigger scale war than that we see. I mean, the Ewok stuff in 6, yeah, but not as much as Hoth. There's just more that's happening in 5. There's more at stake in 5. Same as Pirates 3, much more at stake. Saving Jack, defeating Davy Jones, and all of that stuff. We learn about the Brethren Court. We learn all these different things. Like Alex said, so the lore, there's more lore in Pirates 3. So actually, Alex convinced me in this video that I think that Pirates 3, actually, today at least, tomorrow I might go back to 2, but Pirates 3 is my favorite Pirates movie right now. So, Alex, you're welcome. But the twist, Star Wars 5, obviously learning that Vader is Luke's father, that was crazy. But, of course, there's twists in Pirates 3. Will gets killed, essentially. Nobody saw that coming at all. Elizabeth becomes Pirate King. We weren't expecting that. We discover who Calypso is. That Davy Jones really isn't that bad of a guy. He was screwed over. That's kind of a twist. Because you see how ugly, I don't even want to call him ugly. I feel bad, like he just heard me call him that. You see how he looks and you're like, yeah, he's a bad guy because he looks like a monster. But then when you find out, yeah, but he became a monster because he suffered and this and that, and basically he's heartbroken. That's a twist, in my opinion. Unlike a gotcha moment in all of Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Pirates 3 brings, on top of, the rescuing Jack, we have this mission we got to do. And same as in Star Wars 5, like they have this mission that they got to go do. So they are very comparable movies, but I think Pirates of the Caribbean 3, what they have to offer, what they do provide us, what they do show us, I actually think is better than what we get in Star Wars Episode 5. And obviously, technology and all that stuff, but I'm not comparing that. What I'm comparing is, again, the lore, the twists, like all these things that happen in Pirates at World's End, even the score, all these elements of At World's End it really feels like it's, this is all in. This is an all-in movie. It's like this is all or nothing. Which, ironically, that's how kind of Empire Strikes Back feels. Because back then, they didn't even know that they were going to make a Star Wars 2. They didn't know. They didn't even really know that they were going to make a Star Wars 3, really. They did, but it was kind of like, well, we're writing 5. What happens if 5 doesn't do that good? We're taking risks, this and that. So really, 5, and the other thing too, don't forget, very rarely is there a movie where the bad guy kind of wins in the end. Which arguably in Pirates 2, the bad guy wins in the end. Not even arguably, the bad guy does win in the end. Where at World's End, you can sort of argue that same point. The bad guy kind of, although he loses, he also did take someone that Jack Sparrow ended up befriending, felt close to. It hurt another character that Jack felt close to. And I'm talking about Will Turner and Elizabeth. Really, the bad guy did, in a way, he didn't succeed fully, but he did kill and cause, a lot of almost trouble and this and that, like family trouble, almost, with Will and Elizabeth. So in a way, the bad guy kind of does sort of win in the end. It's not all like fine and dandy. I just think that what Pirates 3 offers, what they give us, is only slightly, but I think it is better than The Empire Strikes Back. So now we got Dead Man's Chest and The Curse of the Black Pearl left for Pirates, and we have Rogue One and Return of the Jedi. I'm gonna let Alex go first, and we're not gonna do how he just did, like 1v1. We're gonna just kind of be like, okay, this is how I feel about this movie, this is how I feel about this movie, and just briefly compare them. So Alex, you can go first.
I think Star Wars Episode 6 is a really good movie. It used to be my favorite. I think it has dropped a bit. It does have some moments that just aren't that great, although the opening is really good. The end fight with Vader is epic. The music in the background is epic. The Ewoks are cool, but I think really a lot of that Endor scene, a lot of the middle of the movie is just, when Luke goes back to Yoda, and he tells him, like, you have a sister, but he doesn't really catch it that much. And a lot of the middle parts of Return of the Jedi aren't that good. I think it's carried by a very strong opening and a very strong ending. Now, where am I going with this? Well, I think that's a really good film. Rogue One is a phenomenal film. Easily, I think, in my opinion, the second best Star Wars film ever made. We talked about before, it's a war movie. It's not really even Star Wars. It's, these guys have a mission, and you know what's going to happen. It's going to be terrible. You're going to, laugh. There's a lot of funny jokes in it. You're going to be emotional because we lose a bunch of them. And it's all around just an epic ride. No Jedi. We see one lightsaber in Vader's, and just some epic moments. Now, when you compare it to Pirates, this is where it gets a little messy. Pirates 1 is a good film. It's starting us off in the franchise. We get a really good Jack Sparrow, a different Jack Sparrow than any of the other movies, because I think they massively tweaked his character after 1. A solid villain in Barbossa, but not compared to, I think, like Darth Vader in 6, or just the Empire and the kind of the mission ahead in Rogue One. So I don't think that's, I think that kind of wins out. And Pirates 1 overall has a good atmosphere, has like a darker, it's just a Pirates movie. There's Aztec gold. And when it goes to Pirates 2 is really good. We get the introduction of Davy Jones, and a better Jack Sparrow, I think, better overall characters, some growth in our characters that we kind of liked in the first one, and an all around really good movie. Jack ends up dying at the end, some big twist there, and the epic fight on the island with Norrington, Will, and Jack. So a lot of great moments. Now, where do I kind of put them together? Well, I think Dead Man's Chest is just slightly better than Return of the Jedi. And I mean just probably the same way as Tyler's at World's End compared. I think Pirates 2 is just slightly better than Return of the Jedi. I think Return of the Jedi and Rogue One are better than Pirates 1. And I think Rogue One is better than both of these remaining Pirates. So I think Rogue One's better than Pirates 1 and 2. I think Star Wars Return of the Jedi is better than Pirates 1. And I think Pirates 2 is better than Star Wars Episode 6. So it's a little messy, because I do think some have advantages over the other. But that's where I come down on those.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Rogue One it stands out. for Star Wars, very, very much. And as Alex said, it's almost not even, it is, but it almost feels like a war movie, like Saving Private Ryan, over a Star Wars movie. They have Star Wars elements, but overall feels very different than Star Wars. Now, you can also say that, Dead Man's Chest feels slightly different than Curse of the Black Pearl because of the supernatural elements and that stuff. So, they are, Rogue One and Dead Man's Chest are pretty comparable, not only, but mainly because how they feel different. Kind of like Alex said. Now, for me, honestly, I don't know. I'm not sure. I almost want to give it to Dead Man's Chest, but at the same time, I feel like that it's so close that it may be tied, honestly. Because and here's the reason. And I think I am going to say that they're tied for me. Although, when you look at box office, again, Rogue One, 1.05 billion, Pirates 2, 1.06 billion. So, that's I don't know if that says anything, but that's interesting. But here's why they're tied. Because, like I said, Pirates 2, that introduces Supernatural, which sets us off into a whole new Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, really. Because so different from Curse of the Black Pearl, where just like Alex said, yes, there was a curse. Yes, when they stepped in moonlight, they looked like skeletons, which is supernatural, but nothing like, the Kraken, nothing like Davy Jones and his crew. That's completely new to Pirates stuff. Rogue One, very literal Star Wars. Very different. No lightsabers other than Vader's. Very I almost want to say boots on the ground. I don't know why that comes to mind, but that's kind of what I want to say. It just felt different than Star Wars, and I was a little bit nervous about it. Then when I saw it, I'm like, yeah, I'm actually glad that they did that. That it was a different Star Wars movie. It was cool, actually. And the funny thing is, we knew how it was going to end, but the whole time, it didn't feel like you even knew. Like, you're like, but, how is it going to happen? How are they going to perish? So it was interesting that they were able to accomplish that. That was great that they were, really, because you're still able to enjoy it, even though you know the outcome, or you think you know the outcome, at least. So really, Rogue One and Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, they both kind of set the films. Pirates sets it into a new direction. Rogue One, we hoped that they kind of would be like, yeah, we could do original stuff now. We'll have to see. They proved that they can't almost with The Last Jedi. We'll see about future Star Wars story films. Hopefully they can keep the success of Rogue One. But yeah, they definitely feel very different. And, Dead Man's Chest introduces a more almost, I kind of want to call it like a gritty feel to the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. We get almost like a revamping of the characters that we knew from Pirates 1. So that was really cool to see. It ends similarly to Rogue One, ends on a kind of dark note. Jack dies. Hope is kind of lost. But yeah, a little spark of hope at the end with Barbossa's boot. Similar to Rogue One, they all die, but then we see Vader, and it's like, oh crap. But it was a really cool ending. But then, again, a little spark of hope, and then we find out, oh, it literally ends at the almost beginning of A New Hope. So very similar in a way. Kind of funny, really. And it just kind of worked out this way. I didn't even plan it like that. But I would say that they're pretty much tied, only because I feel like those two films, because At World's End does feel like a Pirates of the Caribbean film, now that we've seen 5 films. Where Pirates 2, although very good, and definitely, again, like tomorrow probably will be my first favorite again. It was an hour ago, but then Alex changed my mind. But Pirates 2, and I could even briefly ask Alex and he could say yes or no, I feel like Pirates 2 does feel like a different Pirates of the Caribbean movie when I think, when you look at 1 through 5. Do you think so or no?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
So I think they're tied. Pirates 2 and Star Wars Rogue One. Now for Star Wars 6 and Pirates 1, Star Wars 6 for me. And I'm only comparing it like that. Star Wars 6 way better than 1 for Pirates. Not that I didn't like Pirates 1. I just think when I watch it again, it's just slightly kind of boring. The characters are cool and all that stuff. So yeah. Now, because you can't really compare Pirates 1 to Star Wars 6, even though if I am, but here's what you can do. So I guess what I'm saying is Pirates 1's the weakest out of Rogue One, Pirates 1, Star Wars 6, and Pirates 2. Pirates 1 is the weakest. Curse of the Black Pearl is the weakest of those 4. Now here's what you kind of can compare. Star Wars Return of the Jedi to Dead Man's Chest. And here's why. And I know I just compared it, but here's why you can compare it. Because kind of like Alex said, so you get growth of characters in Star Wars 6, obviously. There's a mini time skip. There's a growth of character in Luke, growth of character in Leia, and even Han Solo. And there's also a growth of character in the Pirates, Will, Jack, and Elizabeth in Pirates Dead Man's Chest. And there's a slight time skip as well from Pirates 1 to Pirates 2. So you can compare that. Now, if I were to compare Pirates 2 and Star Wars 6, who do I think grew the most? I would think the biggest change, I would have to go with Pirates 2 for that one. Only because it's slightly, in a way, confusing, what happened with Luke. So Luke became a little bit more dark, I feel like, in Star Wars 6, where Will, not quite as much as, even though it was kind of like he was acting in 3, he was like a double agent at World's End, but for, like, towards the end of Dead Man's Chest, Will kind of went a little bit dark, too. He kind of went against Jack, took some risks, this and that, played the liar's dice and all that stuff. So, he kind of went a little bit dark, too. So in those aspects, Star Wars 6 and Pirates 2 are pretty comparable. But like I said, I'd have to probably give that, if I was comparing those 2 films, I'd have to give it to, I think, Pirates 2. Although I like Star Wars 6, I'm not into the ending of Star Wars 6, to be honest. Not really a fan of the whole Ewok thing either, or really the Endor part. That, I wasn't really into that. That kind of lost me. Why Vader kind of turned that. Okay, so the final battle, Luke versus Vader, I liked. Luke kind of getting angry, I liked. Luke overpowering Vader, I liked. Vader, like, picking up the Emperor and throwing him, and then he's, like, falling and doing lightning. I get it for effect at the time, the year that it came out, I understand it. At the time period it came out. Not really into the change of heart in that way. I don't know how I would have done it differently. I don't know. I'm not really into that. Was it a twist? Yeah, it kind of was, because I don't know if I was really expecting that when I first watched it myself. For Pirates 2's ending, I don't think anybody was expecting Elizabeth to semi-go dark herself, go in for the kiss, which we were expecting, but to really handcuff Jack and make him basically get eaten by the Kraken. I don't think anybody was expecting that, including the entire theater full of female teenagers that were screaming, and it was like screeching, really. But nobody was expecting that ending. So, and again, I know it's a middle movie compared to the final movie of a trilogy, but when I'm comparing, like, character development, like the growth from 1 to 2 and 5 to 6, because really 4 to 5, there really wasn't too much growth in the Star Wars characters from 4 to 5. But 5 to 6, I think there was. I don't think there was much growth in 2 to 3 for Pirates. There was for some, but not really that much. Did he grow? I actually feel like because of his double agentness that we didn't realize was double agentness until, like, the end, that actually lessened my feelings for Will. Elizabeth did grow. Jack was more real Jack, as I call him. He was more serious, so I like that. But growth-wise, I think from 1 to 2 was a big one for everybody, really. So yeah, I'd have to give it to 2. You know, Star Wars 6 and Pirates 2, very good movies in my opinion. But I think I would have to give that to Pirates: Dead Man's Chest.
Okay, so this has been our first part of our crossover of Pirates of the Caribbean and our Star Wars community series. Let us know what you guys have thought about this topic in the comments below. Make sure you come back next week. We're going to have part 2, and then the week after, we're going to have part 3, talking about the concepts of the movies and maybe why one does better than the other. And then in the third part, we're going to be talking about the new characters introduced in Star Wars and in Pirates and kind of what they mean to the franchises, which ones do we think are better, and how they set up the movies for future films afterwards. So let us know what you guys think about all of that. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Podcast Now, like and share the video, and we will see you for part 2.